Death is inevitable. It is a fantastic business because death happens to all of us. There is never gonna be a drop in the market. Hey everybody, so today I want to look at an email that I got, and you know what I'm like with reading, so bear with me. But we are going to be talking about grief and going over the loss and bereavement of somebody, so if you're not in a place where you can listen to that, please prioritize your mental health first. I will put timestamps down below, so if you want to miss the email but listen to what else I have to say, there will be chapters for that, so that should be easy for you to do. But with that, grab a drink, it's far too hot, and let's get into the video. Hi, I don't really know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I saw you wanted to do a video on grief and ghost stories, but it made me think about my own experience. I don't want sympathy or anything. I just want someone out there to maybe understand what it's like, or feel less alone. Or maybe just to get it out of my head. So here goes. I was in Tesco when the call came, in the meal deal aisle, chicken salad wrap in one hand, phone vibrating in my pocket. It was a hospital. A nurse. She had a kind voice. She told me that my dad had passed away in the night, and that it was peaceful, apparently. But that's what they always say. I don't remember walking home. I just know that I didn't cry. Not right away. I sat on the sofa and stared at my own hands like they didn't belong to me anymore. I don't think anything prepares you for the silence after someone dies. It's not the kind of silence that's peaceful. It's the kind that presses in from the edges. The kind that feels like the air's been sucked out of the room. No calls, no footsteps, no cough from the next room, just nothing. The first few days, the calls, the death certificates, the polite messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years, it never stopped. I kept expecting for some guide to appear, someone to tell me what to do next. But there's no manual, just forms, phone queues, and an ache that makes your teeth hurt. And the messages, God, the messages. I knew I had to tell people Dad had passed, but where do you even start? I wanted to run and hide, just to be alone with my grief, but I couldn't. I had to call every company under the sun. I had to pick a funeral director, as if that even matters. I didn't know who should be told or how to reach them, so I made a post on his Facebook page. Once the post was out, I couldn't stop it. Suddenly, I was swarmed. Hundreds of people messaging me, every day, bombarding me with questions. What happened? When's the funeral? Can I come? Did he suffer? Do people have no self-awareness? What happened to leaving the grieving family alone and letting the dust settle before demanding answers? Has the internet made us so accessible that no one even pauses to think anymore? It felt like my dad knew everyone in the world, but I know for a fact he didn't even speak to half the people clogging up my inbox. And then there was the funeral. He didn't leave any instructions, just a prepaid plan for a simple cremation. No fuss, no frills. Except that didn't cover the flowers, or the minister, or the transport, or the catering. The funeral director was lovely, in that practiced, polished sort of way. All soft voices, sympathetic nods, tissues handed at the right moment. They asked how I was holding up, and kept calling me darling. It felt like being gently shepherded through a nightmare. And in the fog of it all, I didn't realise how many extras they slipped in while I was too raw to push back. The car, not included. The flowers, also not included. The order of service? That was £90 for some flimsy folded cards I made myself in Canva. Every time I thought we were finished, there was something else. Would your dad have wanted music? Most families choose a minister. It's customary to provide refreshments. I couldn't stomach the thought of those little triangle sandwiches, but apparently it was expected. It's the done thing, love, the funeral director told me, like I should have known already. So I nodded, because what else do you do? I paid nearly £300 for some sausage rolls and lukewarm tea that nobody finished. They said it like it was all optional, but if you say no, it feels like you're failing them, like you didn't love them enough. The church was full. absolutely packed. I didn't recognise a single face. People from work, from the Rotary Club, from some bloody choir he'd never mentioned. All of them strangers. To me, anyway. Afterwards they came up to me one by one, smiling like I was the guest of honour. Your dad was a great man. He spoke so highly of you. And all I could think was, who even are you? Not one of them asked how I was doing. I felt like a stranger at my own dad's funeral. Like I didn't belong. Like I didn't have a right to be there at all. And then there was the house, which he owned, a little semi in Portsmouth. 2 bedrooms, brick wall garden, white front door that always stuck in the heat. It felt too quiet, like the air was holding its breath. It felt wrong going into the house without him, like I was trespassing or breaking his trust somehow. I shouldn't be there, not without him. I'd sit in my car, staring down the front door like it was some monster I dare not wake. The first time I went in alone, the hallway light flickered. I froze. It was probably just the bulb, but it rattled me. The whole place smelt like clean laundry and ginger biscuits. His jacket was still hanging on the banister. His toothbrush was in the holder, and there was a bottle of milk in the fridge, and a notebook on the kitchen table with his to-do list. Get bread, call plumber, and chase energy bill. I sat in his chair and just stared at the carpet for about an hour. I didn't know where to start. And even though the house was fully paid off, nothing could really happen until probate cleared. I couldn't sell it. I couldn't officially transfer it. I couldn't even change the name on the energy bills without endless forms and certificates. The solicitor told me that it would take months, and I was advised that it was quicker and easier for them to handle it for me, rather than trying to executor it myself. It was expensive though, another £1,000. I'd already dropped over £2,000 on the prepaid funeral, so what did it matter at this point? My savings ran out a while ago, so it's just going on that I'll figure this out later magic credit card. In the meantime, it was all on me. Keeping the place secure, paying the council tax, dealing with damp in the back bedroom. It didn't feel like I'd inherited a home. It felt like I'd inherited a burden. I started to talk out loud while I was there. Hi Dad, just me again. Hope you don't mind me going through your things. At first it was just habit, but then it started feeling like he was there. Like he was listening, watching, waiting. One day I swear I smelled cigarette smoke in the hallway upstairs. He quit 10 years ago and no windows were open. I started leaving the hallway light on when I locked up. It got worse after that day with the smoke. I kept going back to the house, telling myself it was just to sort more paperwork. But I didn't touch the paperwork. I just sat in his chair, touched his old jumpers, walked the rooms like he might be in the next one. I wanted to keep my distance, to stay in my flat and just manage the house from afar, but the bills kept piling up. Council tax, utilities, insurance, and with rent on top of all of that, I simply couldn't afford to run 2 places each month. Something had to give. So I gave my notice on my flat, and over the course of a few draining days, started hauling my life over to my dad's house, box by box. By the time I locked the front door behind me that first night, I was exhausted. Physically, emotionally, all of it. I stood in the hallway for a long time, just listening to the silence. When it came time to sleep, I couldn't face his room. Just standing in the doorway made my chest ache. His slippers were still by the bed. A mug sat on the nightstand. It was like he might walk back in at any moment. So I went to my old room instead, smaller, colder, and barely touched since I left home, and curled up in a pile of unfamiliar blankets, and told myself it was temporary, just until I was ready. That night, after everything had gone quiet, I heard a floorboard creak upstairs, even though I knew I was alone in the house. I broke, crying into my sleep, whispering, "Please, if you're here, just let me know." There was no reply. No sound. But I felt watched. Not in a threatening way. In a way that felt familiar. Later that week, scrolling on Facebook at 2 AM, I saw a video. A woman in a softly lit room said, "If this finds you, someone you love is trying to reach you." I watched the whole thing with my hand over my mouth. It felt personal, like she knew, like my dad had somehow made the algorithm deliver her to me. I clicked her profile. She was a medium, local, friendly, not pushy, just comforting. Her page was full of people thanking her for messages that brought closure. One said she helped them finally sleep again. I booked a reading, £45 for 30 minutes. I didn't even hesitate. She opened the session by saying she could feel a male presence straight away. "Very close to you," she said, very protective. She asked if the name David or Daniel meant anything. My dad's name was Dan. My stomach flipped. She told me he passed peacefully, that he didn't want me to feel guilty, that he missed our chats and was proud of how strong I was being. She said he was trying to show me signs, flickering lights, familiar smells, changes in temperature. I hadn't told her about the hallway, or the smoke. I cried so hard that I couldn't breathe. I booked another session the next week. This time, she said I had a gift, that I was sensitive, that sometimes the veil stays thin for people like me after loss. She said he was staying close because I needed him, and that made sense to me. I started lighting candles, I started recording myself at night to catch sounds, and I started sleeping with one of his cardigans across my chest. It's been almost 5 months now, 15, maybe 16 sessions at £65 each. I try not to think about how much that adds up. But there's also the candles, the crystals, the sage sticks. She said certain stones would help me stay open, keeping the connection strong. I've probably spent over £1,000, more than I ever thought I would. I've skipped meals because money's tighter than I want to admit. And that's not even counting the debt I've been sinking into while waiting for this probate thing. I don't know how I'm meant to claw my way out of this hole. Sometimes I wonder if it's even worth trying anymore. I haven't told anyone at work why I've been so tired, why I sometimes zone out. The nights feel endless. I lie awake replaying everything she said, hoping to catch the message I missed. And sometimes I get frustrated, angry even, like why hasn't he said anything new? Why do I keep feeling like I'm being kept waiting? But then she'll say something only he would know, like how he called my goldfish the lodger, or how he hid biscuits under the tea bag box, and it all feels worth it. I'm so tired, but I don't want to stop, because if I do, what if he really is gone for good? I still live in the house, though some days it feels more like I'm just existing. I try to keep busy, cleaning when I can, sorting through Dad's things bit by bit, but most of the time I find myself sitting quietly in the rooms, talking to the shadows, hoping for some kind of peace or a sign that I'm not completely alone. The hardest part is trying to make sense of it all. How do you sort through and box up someone's entire life? How do you decide what's important enough to keep and what you can let go of? Every object feels weighted with memories, and every decision feels like a small betrayal or step towards finality. And through it all, the medium's words keep echoing in my head. That he's waiting. That the veil between worlds is thin. That I'm sensitive to things most people can't see. I want to believe it, because maybe that would explain why the house was so alive, so heavy with presence. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just holding on to something that's never coming, but I don't want to admit that. I can't admit that. I think there's something he wants to say, something I haven't heard yet, so I'll keep listening. Anyway, thanks for reading this. I don't know why I sent it, maybe just to get it out. I think I'll book one more reading, just to see if he's still there. Natalie. But I felt like it was important to tell a story with what I want to talk about, so that even the people that haven't experienced it can maybe get an idea. Because what I actually want to talk about is how grief is exploited. And it's not just by the mediums, it's everybody at every step, especially when you're dealing with something like this alone. Like, I was very lucky that when my mum died, my uncle, who is a very busy man, cancelled everything to come stay locally, and he cooked. He was like, what can I do? And I was like, I have no idea. And he was like, what about if I cook? And I was like, yes, sounds fantastic, do that. Because it's one less thing we had to worry about. So my stepdad handled all the paperwork and the banks and the death certificate and all of that. I handled the bombardment of messages and the funeral. Obviously, my stepdad paid, but I arranged everything. And when you can break it up like that into different family members doing different things, it helps so much. But not everybody has that. Not everybody has that support. I'm also quite lucky is not the right word, but it's the word that I'm using. But I'm quite lucky that I do have a dissociative disorder, and I'm used to, you know, actual crisis. So when I'm placed into a situation like the loss of somebody, I'm very much like, right, organise. It's just my default is I go into caretake mode and I organise everything. I did that with my when my grandmother passed, and my uncle really needed support, and he was handling the logistics side of it, and I was just the emotional support, and I went over and helped try and sort out some of her things and cracked a few dark humour jokes and took the edge off and just tried to support. But I had my notebook and I did write a list. So if we're looking at who exploits death, death is inevitable. It is a fantastic business because death happens to all of us. There is never gonna be a drop in the market. So you've got the funerals, telling people somebody has died, overwhelming, especially when that person is like my mother and knows about 50 million people, which is also really sad because in life she felt so alone. And then her funeral was packed. But that also goes to show that people don't show up a lot of the time unless somebody dies, so there's also that baked into our society. Then you have the emotional upselling of caskets and flowers and catering and venues and songs and readings, and who's going to do those readings, and do they want sunflowers or do they want lilies, or do you want one spray? Do you want people bringing flowers? Do you just want family flowers? Do you want this, that, the other? Do they want to be buried? Do they want to be cremated? What are you going to bury them in? Do they want an eco burial? If so, what are you allowed to bury them in? My mum wanted an eco burial, but you can't have any metal or anything that won't like biodegrade. They have to be embalmed in a special way, and you also can't have a normal casket. But I did find this really adorable cardboard casket company that like prints pictures on the side of caskets, and we got her one with like foxes printed on it, and it was beautiful. And then it's the hidden fees of a funeral, like the transport and whether that's included or not, and how are you going to get people there, and do people need to travel? Are they going to do their own research? Are they going to bombard you with questions asking where the nearest hotels are and if there's space and blah 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 blah? And what if people can't afford to travel, or what if people are too far away to travel or too sick to travel? Like, are you going to live stream the funeral for those people, or are you just going to be like, sucks to be you? And even prepaid funeral plans sometimes have hidden fees, so your loved one could be like, oh, I've paid for my funeral, my family won't have to struggle. And then, no, turns out not. Turns out there were a bunch of hidden fees and you're now thousands of pounds down the drain. And then you've got like house clearance and assets and the car, and like whether the car's in the right name, and then you've got to decide whether you're going to be the executor or whether you're going to hire solicitors to be the executor, and whether you can afford that. And from conversations with my boyfriend, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, if a solicitor goes, hey, I need this form, the banks will jump and just do it. But if an executor, like a normal person, solicitors are normal people, but you know what I mean, like a family member, executor says, hey, I need this form, they'll get them, like the task will be like tasked, but it won't get done for like a week or however long, and then you'll have to chase it. So it is faster to have a solicitor, but it's very expensive. And then if you're on benefits and you get inheritance, you're screwed. You will have to live off of that inheritance, and then good luck trying to get back on benefits once that's gone. And then you got inheritance tax, and I don't think in this country we transfer debt, but I think in other countries they do. And then you've got the mortgage on the house, whether that's paid off or not, and you can't do anything with it until you've got probate. And then if they're in council accommodation, for example, then you've got like 14 days to get all their stuff out, or they'll do it for you and bill you. And then a lot of the time those companies that you pay to go in and clear a house will completely undervalue anything in there, or just straight up steal stuff. And sometimes there's just a lot of messy red tape that end up in the beautiful properties being abandoned. And then you've got the spiritual side of things, with psychics offering services for large fees or even like small fees, but you get lots of them, so it adds up. And then you've got death doulas, which is a relatively new thing in the West at least. And while the death doula tends to be involved before the death for the dying person, a lot of them do offer like grief support packages for the family post-death. So it's just another cost on top of everything else. I say all this knowing full well I would love to go into funeral services, but even those of us that are trying to help are still adding to the exploitation, because all of this costs money. And like, of course it does. People who are doing this for a job need to make a living, but that doesn't mean it doesn't cause harm in some way. And then you've got like the expensive like death retreats or spiritual courses, and they're all targeting your grief. And I kept our medium in this like trying to help, I guess, not so much. Obviously she was manipulative, or I don't remember if I gendered them. If they were manipulative because of what they were doing, but I didn't add to it by being like, oh, your dad's suffering because he can't move on because you're not at peace. I didn't think it needed that layer in the story, but stuff like that definitely happens. I mean, personally, my family got ripped apart because of mediums. I remember one of the last things my granddad ever said to me was, don't trust mediums, they're all con artists and they will ruin your life. And then you have the ghost hunters, you've got the media creating false narratives. Then you've got personal death and home cleansing services that, you know, they'll go in and cleanse the home of any bad energy or whatever, but for a large fee. And you get haunted object theft and exploitation. So if they see something that they really like, they're going to be like, oh, that's haunted, I'll take it away for you, or I'll take it for you, or oh, I guess I'll take it, but you know, you'll have to pay me for it. And then you have these YouTuber subscription fees and false communities with, like, the best example I can come up with currently off the top of my head is Lainey and Ben, back when they were exploiting everybody, and they would kick out and ban anybody that tried to speak up against them or even question the narrative. They would ban anybody that didn't donate, and it was horrible. But there is so much of this. And then you've got the psychology of it, and the grief fog, and the emotional overwhelm, and the desire for control or meaning, and then getting upset if you don't see your loved one after they die, or having continuing bonds and seeing your loved one. And there's a whole psychology in continuing bonds, which I would love to cover in a future video. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm sort of doing broad overviews of concepts, and then I want to delve deeper into specific topics within that concept. So let me know if you would like me to do anything specific. But I want to talk about an experience I had, or experience I didn't have, with my mum when she passed. So when she died, it was very sudden. She called me out of the blue, and I answered the phone literally like, who's dead or dying? Because we were texters, never called. And she was like, you're not allowed to worry but me. And she told me that she was going for tests, I didn't know what was wrong, but everything was going to be fine because she was getting medical care. And then within about a week, yeah, I think it was a week, I get a text from my little sibling saying that mum can't breathe. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? I was also in the process of breaking up with my girlfriend when I got this text. And in that moment, I was just like, can we stop fighting? It doesn't even matter anymore. Can we just fix this? I can't deal with a breakup on top of losing my mum. I have learnt that you finish breaking up with your toxic partner and then you go deal with the crisis, because it's gonna make it so much easier. And you're not gonna get screamed at and called a bad girlfriend because you dared to look after your 10-year-old sibling and plan a funeral for your dead mum just because you weren't around at the drop of a hat to watch Star Wars or play Minecraft. But with that out of the way, that day she went into a coma. They were doing staggered tests, never figured out what was wrong. Everything was fine. Everything came back normal. I do kind of have the feeling that it was her trauma that took her out. She was very, very avoidant of dealing with her trauma. And I think that's what got her in the end. And then she went into a coma, never woke up, and she was alone when she passed because they turned her. I don't know whether there was an option for them to wait until we got there, but because my stepdad was dealing with that and he was very overwhelmed and everything, I don't know whether he even thought to ask whether that was an option or whether he was just like being a nodding dog to everything that they were saying, because what else are you gonna do? So she was alone when she passed. I wanted to have a viewing so I could see her and say goodbye, and I didn't get that either because my best friend at the time basically didn't let me. We weren't gonna get there. To be fair, she did take time off of work and take me up there, but I could have got up there a different way without her and had the viewing, so there is that. But the day she died and I announced it to people were telling me that they kept seeing dragonflies. There was this cancer friend out in France, I think, and mum had cancer when I was a teenager, beat it, went into remission, everything was fine. And she had a dragonfly trapped in, I think it was her utility room, I don't remember, it might have been her kitchen. And apparently that was very out of character for the area they were in. They don't really get dragonflies where she lives, and it was weird. And then I had kind of a mutual friend at the time tell me that they had dragonflies in their garden, and it was like this huge dragonfly. It was like much bigger than any other dragonfly she's ever seen, and it flew into the garden, landed near her, sort of looked at her for a minute, and then flew away. And I was hearing all these dragonfly stories, and mum was obsessed with dragonflies, nature in general, but specifically dragonflies. And when I went into her office because you have to sort out the work equipment when they work from home, we had to find all that and set it, but we never did find her work phone. No idea where she put it. But I also had to go into like find her will and if she'd left any funeral plans or anything. And on her desk there was a little leaflet of like dragonfly identifications. So she had been looking at dragonflies on the day that she died, or on the day she went into a coma. And on some level, I was looking for dragonflies anywhere. I was looking for a sign anywhere, and I never got one. And even though I'm quite rational, and I know that, well, I mean, at that point, I was still kind of in my spiritual beliefs, and I've sort of distanced myself from that a bit now. Like, I've done enough research, and I'm more questioning what paranormal activity actually is. I'm not convinced it's ghosts, but back then I was still very much like ghosts are a thing, at least in some capacity. And I was looking for a sign, and I was like, why are all these random people getting signs and I'm not? I'm her daughter. I'm the one that's being left to pick up all these pieces after she's gone and try and protect everybody else because that's who I am. But I don't get a sign. And yeah, it was really hard. And I do feel like it's a bit of assigning meaning where there is none, because both of those events could have happened on that day, and it just would have been a bit of a weird thing, and there would have been no meaning assigned to it if my mum hadn't passed away or my mum hadn't been into dragonflies. But in the story, I wrote about continuing bonds because that is something that I want to look at more deeply. So I wanted to show the other side of the coin and also why it can be like really upsetting. I did ask ChatGPT to like give me a summary of all these potential costs, and I am not saying that death necessarily costs this much. I'm sort of going for worst case scenario kind of deal. So let's jump over to the reaction screen and have a brief look at that. So we were chatting a bit before this, but I just asked it to combine the two lists. Here is a combined and organised list of grief-related spiritual and post-death services that can drastically increase financial and emotional strain, especially when someone is isolated, overwhelmed, or desperate for answers like Natalie. So we have the funeral and the wake, anywhere between $3.5 to $5 grand. Funeral add-ons anywhere from £500 to £2 grand plus. Funeral catering £300 to £800. Death doula and end of the life companionship $500 to $1,500 plus. Probate solicitor $1 to $3+ grand. House clearance £200 to over £1 grand. Council tax on an empty home $150 to $300 a month. Really? It depends on band, location and exemptions. Okay, that's fair enough. I was going to say my council tax is like the low end of that. Like, what's happening? Utility bills and insurance $100 to $300 a month. It depends what you got. Psychic medium £30 to £300+ a session. House cleansing and energy clearing £50 to £300. Paranormal investigation and ghost hunters $3 to £500+. Spirit communication tools $20 to £500+. Tarot and divination readings £30 to £100 a session. Spiritual home protection items £30 to £300. Ashes into jewellery, art on vinyl $200 to $1.5 grand plus. Grief coaching and life coaching $70 to $250 a session. Reiki, chakra healing and energy work $40 to $150 a session. Past life regression and soul retrieval $70 to £200 a session. Digital legacy services £50 to £250. Custom memorial videos or websites £100 to £500. Bereavement cleaning, post-death cleaning £100 to over £1,000 potentially. So if someone engages in only a few of these, costs can escalate by £3,000 to £7,000. For someone in deep grief like Natalie seeking peace or spiritual closure, it could easily reach £10,000+, especially if they attend multiple medium sessions, purchase cleansing and protection items, hire legal and spiritual help simultaneously, pay for storage, clearances, probate delays, or property upkeep. So I hope I did this video justice, even though it was a heavier topic. If you would like me to delve more into any specific part of this video, or I'm doing a few of these videos, so you probably would have seen the PTSD one that I did recently. Again, that was sort of like a surface layer. I will delve deeper, or could delve deeper into that. So if you ever have any questions about one of these broader topic videos and you want me to delve into something specific, please let me know, and by all means I will. But that has been the exploitation of grief, and I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me. While it was a difficult topic, I have enjoyed hanging out with you, and with all that being said, I will leave you to get back to the rest of your day now, and I hope it's a good one, and I will see you next time. Bye!